Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Thew from the University of Geneva, and I'd like to welcome you to this, the last session of the EQTC conference. And I hope you all enjoyed yourself, perhaps even learned something. Now, as is tradition with these conferences and the flagship itself, we always like to have the opportunity to have a bit of a discussion as a community and get some feedback from you and hopefully respond to some of your questions, concerns, ideas. So in the coming half hour, I'd be really happy if you would use the Q&A facility on the platform and ask us lots of questions. And we'd really like to hear about what you think about the conference itself. You know, what are we missing? I would say perhaps not so much what are we missing in terms of a virtual conference. It would have been much happier, and I'm sure we would have enjoyed much more a physical 3D event. But we'd like to think about improving, and what you think is missing would be a really critical and useful input for that. But I mean, we've also had lots of sessions outside of the science in terms of education and gender equity, industry standards. We're sort of all of this aspect, the full scope of the flagship and what we're trying to do. Anything that you think might be useful or you have questions or concerns about, throw them in the Q&A, and we'll try and get back to them in a few minutes and discuss these. And what we can't discuss today, we'll obviously take on board for future in any case. But in the following few minutes, I'm going to get a couple of people, Tommaso Calarco, who is head of the QCN, the Quantum Community Network, amongst other things, and Pascal Maillot from the European Commission to give us a few words at the end of this conference. So I'll remind you, please use the Q&A, and we'll come back to you in a minute. And Pascal, I'll give you the floor. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. I must admit that after these 4 days of QTC, the number of sessions and the number of delegates who registered is quite impressive. There were more than 100 scientific talks, 58 sessions in total, 666, as I said, delegates. Well, that number might not be the best one, I would say. Let's say 667 delegates registered from 42 countries, 14 exhibitors. These are really 4 days really full about quantum technologies. And I'm very happy to see that, because the ambition of the EU and the European Commission in quantum technologies, as you know, is very important, and that's really technologies that we believe can bring the EU to be in the leadership in computers, in simulators, sensors, and communication. We have the quantum flagship. I guess Tommaso has already talked about it, supported by deployment of infrastructure in quantum communication like QCI, in the hybrid high-performance computer and quantum computer. We want to build an infrastructure also. And these type of events with so many people registered and so many talks is a good support to help us to make to people understand the value of these quantum technologies. So I don't have a lot of minutes. I would like just to say that I thank you, all of you, the organizer, the attendees, about these 4 days of intense discussion that, as I said, is very important to support the development of quantum technologies in Europe. We are not the only one working on that, obviously. All the most important countries outside the EU are also developing their quantum strategy. So it's important for us not to lag behind and even to be in the leadership. And I really expect and hope that in 2 years, this type of event is supposed to be planned every 2 years, that in 2 years we'll have again another very interesting week about quantum technologies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pascal. Perhaps Tommaso, you'd like to also say a few words. Thanks.
Yes, well, as I mentioned in the beginning, there are a lot of things that we wouldn't have expected, we wouldn't have guessed when we started this ramp-up phase of the flagship. And of course, the saddest of all is, of course, that we cannot meet in presence, and this will make a huge difference when this will be possible again, especially for this conference, because the exchange, when you have a specific meeting, a project meeting, something which is a very clear focus, then you can halfway do this via Zoom. But when it's about coming all together and exchanging ideas and making new things emerge, this is something which is very, very difficult to come to the extent that would be possible in presence. On the other hand, and perhaps this makes it even more challenging, well, actually, one reason why we would have needed it even more this time is that we are going beyond the flagship. So what Pascal, Maillot just mentioned are really many components of what we could really call a quantum fleet. The flagship now is focusing on research, which is great because, when we started, it was much smaller budget. It was considered to be 1 billion. Now it's grown to 7 billions. And the flagship was considered to have to take care of all the aspects from research to innovation, industrialization, and so on. And now we have many more initiatives. So there is more space, more budget, and also not only the flagship, but also in Digital Europe, the infrastructure, EuroQCI, EuroQCS, the training program in Digital Europe, and so on. And now the challenge is, which is even more difficult to do if we cannot meet in person, is how do we keep all of this together? It's a challenge of how will be the governance, how we will keep the community together, how we will exchange, how we will be able to synthesize and listen and gather ideas and bring them together in a unified agenda for research and innovation. Well, we have been able to do that, and the Commission is listening very much to this over the past several years. But now that this is really getting broader, well, that's a question mark. So this really requires a strong involvement from everybody. And so for me, this would be an opportunity today, perhaps, hopefully, not just to get feedback on the conference, how we need to improve the conference, maybe even for next time, but, more in general, is it working? What we are achieving, we are getting bigger. Is it still delivering the cohesion that we needed to create a European system, a European ecosystem? Or especially, actually, I'm not fishing for compliments, let's say, not looking for things that are working, but really we should look for things that are not working. We needed to gather as much as possible all issues, objections, things which are not working, things which we need and can improve, so that in this next stage, which for us is new, is going beyond what we started with, which is research, making sure that it still works. We are looking for objections. We are looking for all critical voices which can help us understand what needs to be fixed before it's too late, and early enough that we can ensure a really organic development by keeping the pan-European cohesion of this initiative. So that's a little bit my plea to everybody who is participating in the session, perhaps to indicate some of this in the chat, and maybe we can address some of that in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommaso. Thank you, Pascal. Indeed, please comments, questions, anything you like, if that can go into the chat. If we don't get to it today, we can certainly get to it at another point. So one of the questions, well, actually, it's more of a comment agreeing about the need for physical events, but whether your hybrid events would combine the best of both worlds. I'm not sure whether we want to get into a discussion about how conferences are run, but more maybe what's missing. But one of the other questions was, given the success of emerging quantum technologies as presented here, what are the challenging questions in quantum basic research so that the universities keep gathering gifted students to solve basic research relevance for making quantum research appealing in the long term? So would Pascal or Tommaso like to comment on that question while we wait for more?
Well, I obviously like very much a question about basic research because we cannot forget ever that this whole construction is resting on a solid basic of basic research. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we were laughed at for working on this exotic quantum stuff, and now we see where it is coming from, where it is coming to. But of course, we have to keep it alive, and so part of the answer to the question of Thomas is we don't know what are the challenging questions, and actually one main task of basic research is keeping to identify what are the important questions, what are the main challenges for the future. But there are certainly some fields in which this is clear that we need basic research. For instance, we have no systematic understanding what quantum algorithms are, how they work, how to build new algorithms, like a conceptual framework for that. This is a very fundamental question which has very clear applied implications, but it requires perhaps even more abstract thinking than we have been able to do. So there is a lot of questions such as this one, for instance, in theory. I'm a theorist, so that's of course what I would like to say. But clearly we have to keep that, not only for its own sake, but Thomas is mentioning universities. Universities are the cradle for new talent, is where we can create new skills and train the next generation of people which we need to develop these technologies. So certainly this has to continue to be a very central aspect.
Maybe I would just add that the community is probably the best person or the best group of people to answer the question of what are the big questions in basic science. And that's something that I think the Commission would like to hear, that there are a lot of new open and big questions that may have a future in 20, 25 years time from now. So I think that's not just a question from Thomas to the panel, but also to the rest of the community. Okay, we have I think it's more of a comment from David Shaw on, okay, appreciating the high caliber of the talks and the effort put into the tutorial style presentations. That's more of a comment towards what was working. But I think Tommaso was also sort of pointing out that it would be good to point to the things that aren't working. So I would encourage you to put any more questions in that. We don't seem to have any more for the moment. Did the panel have any sort of final words before I move on?
Well, let me express a fear. So, well, of course, I'm very happy that, and this is connected to this basic research thing, or maybe with research more in general. While we are, of course, very happy that this is successful, it leads to innovation, to products, to a lot of development, to more funding, to more energy. But sometimes from colleagues in the scientific arena, on universities, for instance, on the basic science side, but also research in general, I'm not sure to which extent really we are still having the whole community which feels engaged. Sometimes I hear objections such as, oh no, now it's gone just to industry. It's no longer a matter for us in science. Of course, this may be an extreme opinion, but I'm really afraid because certainly if this would be the case, then the whole thing would soon fall apart. Because without constant influx of ideas from science, we're not going to make it. And so maybe it's only my concern, but you know, these vibrations I get in the community, they make me a little bit worried, and I'd like this to come to the surface and for us together to find ways to address this. So I'm optimistic, as usual, that this can be done, but we really need engagement, so nobody should feel sort of left behind or left outside. So as we growing means that, you know, more and more people should, you know, engage and feel connected and involved. So this is really what I hope very much will happen, and this is the only remedy against, you know, all possible obstacles that we are going to encounter. We have come here today because we have really had, you know, a united way of dealing with this at pan-European level, and it requires engagement from everybody. We cannot sit back. I hope very much this will be the case.
Thank you, Tommaso. I think that's a very good message to finish on. Pascal, did you have any final word you wanted to share?
Well, no, I don't have any specific final word except thanking again the community. But what Tommaso mentioned is indeed quite important. And talking about basic science, even if the quantum flagship is dubbed as a lab to market, because we really plan and to have quantum devices and the full ecosystem behind it, with industries, company building quantum devices and creating jobs in the EU. We are certainly not forgetting basic science, and we go on funding basic science. And when I talk with experts, they explain us that there are still many things to discover. Tommaso gave some examples of things that we still have to understand in quantum technology or in quantum physics. So we go on with basic science, even if we try to, as much as possible, go to the market for the EU market with all these programs and projects. And we have the best experts in the EU. They are so good that other countries try to attract them in their own country. So Tommaso, I completely agree with you also that this sense of community and cooperation between our experts is something very important, and that nobody feels that he is not taken, he or she is not taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pascal. Okay, and with that, I think I will hand over for a few final words from a couple of our local organizers, and maybe before passing over, just on behalf of everyone, thank them for putting on this enormous and challenging effort, and I hope we can say we've succeeded in making this a great conference and a memorable conference. So thank you, Venkatesh, and I'll now hand the floor over to Peter Woods for some final comments. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Rob. Next week actually will mark 2 years exactly since QFlag and the organisers first flew into Dublin to plan the physical conference of EQTC21. And unfortunately, there was a lot of challenging circumstances that we all know about, and we were delighted to have been able to organise and bring the European and international quantum technologies together this week. And we hope everybody enjoyed it as much as we did here. We see it as a great success. And as the numbers were quoted, 666 delegates from 42 countries is more than we could have really hoped for, given the circumstances. One very important final act is to announce the winners of our competition that's been running all week. So if I can share my screen, and I will put up the So as you may know, the conference was run. It was a gamification where points were awarded, and we have 3 prizes. So our third prize winner is Ivan Porgilov from the University of Innsbruck, and Ivan will win a €50 gift voucher. The organising committee will be in touch with you and arrange for that voucher to be delivered, of a voucher of your choice. Our second prize winner was Daria Antilya from the University of Turku. So congratulations, Daria. And our final winner, and this is a very nice prize sponsored by IOP Publishing. It's an open access full waiver for publication in the quantum science and technology journals. It's worth a lot of money. So congratulations to Patrick Carey from CBI. And I do believe I checked the participant list just before I come on there, and I do believe Patrick is one of the participants at the minute. So congratulations, Patrick. I will just stop sharing. And just before closing, on behalf of the organising committee, there are a number of people, organisations that require mention and thanks. We would like to acknowledge the close working relationship that we develop with key members of the Quantum Flagship Coordination and Support Action, including members of the European Commission involved in planning and organising this conference. It's been great to work with you, and hopefully we'll get to work with you again some stage in the future. We'd also like to thank Grania and our team from ABI, the professional conference organisers, who did a great job with everything and made everything possible. And we would like to thank our 4 main sponsors, IBM, Atos, Blue Force and Dell, as well as our many virtual exhibitors. And I hope you all had a successful conference and got out of it what we would have liked you to get out of it. And finally, we would like to thank all of you as delegates, all 666 of you. We hope that over the last 4 days, we provide you with a platform in which to demonstrate your work, your ideas, learn, and also interact with your peers. Although this was a virtual one, we look forward to seeing you at a physical EQTC in the very, very near future. So thanks, everyone. And that's all.
And I think with that, we close the conference. Thank you, one and all. It's been wonderful.
All right.
Bye.